Hello, peeps and creeps, and welcome to the Fright Club. I'm Gav, he's Danny.
Hello.
We're the Fright Club NI, and this is a brand new episode of Monday Night Frights. On tonight's show, we're talking about David Cronenberg's sci-fi horror classic, Scanners! And we're back with episode 5.11, talking about Scanners, Danny.
Scanners.
2 episodes left of this fucking season.
I mean, can you believe
Crazy.
it? How did we get here? What's going on?
Madness. Absolute madness.
How we've managed, we're on a 5th season and we're nearly finished said 5th season. Fuck's going on?
I know, mental, but it's taken us this far to get a David Cronenberg film.
Yeah, Cronenberg. I'm actually surprised it has taken us this long, but I won't lie, Gav. I've not seen many Cronenberg films. No.
Yeah, this was your first time watching this, actually, wasn't it?
This was my first time watching Scanners, yes. And I was kind of, you know what? I think I maybe just built up in my head a wee bit that when ultimately, upon watch, I was like,
yeah,
oh, I've seen all the best bits. And
I think with a lot of these classic films that we love and adore and we talk about, and they're always on lists and influential films and all this. If you haven't seen them before and you're watching them now, you would maybe think, they're maybe not as good as I thought they would be.
I think if maybe I didn't know anything about it or I hadn't seen the clips and stuff, then I maybe would have been like, oh yeah, all right. But again, I don't really know. There was some of the narrative points I feel were a bit slow. A bit, when shit's not going down, it's a bit kind of like, well, there's no shit going down.
There's definitely some slow points in the film, and we'll talk about it all in a minute or two. Yeah. But the reason why we're talking about David Cronenberg is because I fucking love the man. But also, a few days ago, before we recorded this episode, the trailer was released for his new film that's coming out very soon called Crimes of the Future. It's a feature-length film. It steals a title of one of his earlier short films. It's not a remake of his short film. It just takes the title from it. And it looks fucking awesome. Have you seen the trailer?
I've not seen it yet. No. I must check it out.
It's class. Vigo is obviously in it because, Vigo is awesome. Mm-hmm. Who else is in it? Leah Seydoux in it, and I can't remember the rest of the cast, but it's a pretty decent cast. And as always, there's always a wee bit of body horror in it.
God, I love it. That's one thing actually with Scanners. I thought the body horror was quite tame. I half expected, and again, it's because I've seen the clips and stuff for this. I was like, oh, there's going to be some good gory body horror, and then there's not really. Like, there's not really 2 big moments.
Yeah,
two
big scene, and then the finale at the end is
there's not a big lot, and especially because I've seen like Videodrome and that, and I was kind of expecting maybe a bit more, and then it didn't really happen. I wanna see the bloody guts and stuff.
King of body horror, David Cronenberg is, and rightly so. He is amazing in that genre. He sort of helped to create that a subgenre. I think anyway, he's one of those filmmakers that have kind of pushed that to the front. But yeah, not all of his movies are about body horror. I mean, he does lots of stuff that isn't related to body horror at all. But I feel it's a wee bit unfair sometimes when people think that he's just a body horror guy. I mean, he's a very intelligent filmmaker, and all of his films generally have some sort of kind of message or theme.
We know what he's getting.
Social commentary on maybe what's happening in the world at the time, and he uses body horror as a kind of metaphor, I suppose, in many of his films, but maybe not so much this.
Yeah.
So Cronenberg is a Canadian filmmaker, and he started making short films after he left the University of Toronto. And do you know who he met?
Who did he meet?
And do you know who produced a couple of his first feature films? Mr. Daniel, big Ghostbusters fan. Ivan Reitman.
Ivan Reitman helped out Cronenberg. Okay. I even give him a wee helping hand.
He did.
Jesus, that's wonderful.
Yeah, he produced his first couple of horror films, and Shivers and Rabid were the two that he produced, and I mean, he really helped to put him on the map and gave him a platform to show off his skills. And it was nice whenever he sadly passed away a while ago. People were obviously saying about Ghostbusters and all the great work that he's done as a director, but they also, you know, there was a nice small community that was saying, look, he helped produce some horror films back in the day as well, and he helped give Cronenberg his kind of chance in the genre. So
opened the door.
He did. So big up Ivan Reitman. Before we get into Scanners, I want to talk a little bit about a couple of his early films. Before we did this, we were kind of discussing what Cronenberg we were going to do. I knew that we wanted to do Cronenberg, but we talked about, you mentioned Videodrome, and we're like, yeah, Videodrome is probably one of my favorite Cronenberg films.
I really like Videodrome.
Yeah. But I do feel like, you know, it's maybe been analysed to death.
Nah, probably.
You know what I mean? It's been. We probably will do it in the future season because it's such a good film.
Let us know in the comments below.
Let us know in the comments. And I actually wrote an article about, well, not specifically about Videodrome, but you can check that out on the website, www.thefrightclubni.com. I'll put it in a link in below. If YouTube don't delete it because they think it's porn. That's another fucking story. But anyway, so I'll tell you off screen. I don't know if I told you that yet.
No.
But we'll get there. The YouTube thought that our link for X, which we put in House of the Devil, they thought that was porn, and they deleted the link and wouldn't, which was a bit strange, considering it was just a link to your website.
Just the one X, surely you need two more.
Triple X, exactly. Fuck's sake. No, but then they'd be anti-Vin Diesel. So anyway, he made some short films, and then Shivers was his debut feature film in 1975. It was about... So it's been done quite a bit since then, but back then, this was like a big kind of like shocking film, controversial film. It was about an infectious strain of parasites that take over this kind of suburban high-rise apartment. It's very sexual as well, and it's quite visceral, and it shocked the audiences. And it was a very small budget, but I don't think it did much in terms of, you know, getting money back. It probably did enough to make him make his second film, which was a film called Rabid, which I haven't seen. This one was about a woman who develops a taste of blood, and eventually
she goes rabid.
She does, funny enough. But then her victims basically turn into like zombies, blah blah blah. It's that kind of sort of.
So she's patient zero, but without like.
Sort of, yeah.
Okay.
But I haven't seen Rabid. I have seen Shivers. I remember specifically when I first saw it, not long after I started in HMV. DVDs were just a thing, and there weren't that many DVDs on the market. But Shivers,
showing your age there, guy.
Yeah, Shivers for some reason must have been like one of the early titles. I don't know why. I don't know who released it. I don't know what the company was that released it. But I remember the DVD case. It was a white case, and it was just this wee small square in the middle of the main guy, and it just kind of shouted out to me. I don't know why, because it wasn't.
Did it give you the shivers?
Shivers, it did. I wasn't that familiar with Cronenberg's work. Like I knew The Fly and some stuff like that, but I wasn't like a super big fan of Cronenberg. But it made me want to buy it. I think it was only like £3, so I was like, I'll be having that. Watched it one afternoon, and blew me away. It was just like, oh my god, this is just unreal. Like visceral filmmaking and very scary and low budget stuff. So back then it was kind of like, oh, you know, you were being a bit dicky, being like, oh, look, I can see that and blah blah blah, and this doesn't. But then it's kind of like, actually, that's fucking amazing. You know, we all love that shit. Yeah. Like,
give me that B movie grade special effect.
Have you seen it, by the way?
No.
I would check it.
I keep meaning to, but I've never got around to watching The Fly.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Come on.
I know. I don't know why. Again, it's one that I know I'd really enjoy if I sat and watched it.
You have to, man.
Just haven't got around to it. And I know the help me. But I need to fucking get my finger out and get it watched.
Be afraid. Be very afraid. Yeah, you need to watch that, man. Jeff Goldblum.
Wow. I know. I fucking love the Goldblum, but
life finds a way.
Finds a way.
Actually, just when we're talking about Jeff Goldblum, I'm watching the The World According to Jeff Goldblum. I think
Oh,
is
on
the
Disney
title.
Plus, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it good? I
Yeah,
haven't
it's good. We're
watched
about
it.
4 episodes in. It's completely random. Like it's the most random thing. He just picks literally one topic and just travels around. Mostly America. It's the world, but it's mostly America. He travels around and he just talks to people that likes that particular thing.
He's
that
just
talking about.
exploring that topic.
Yeah,
Is
so
it,
like one of them's
is it as weird
tattoos.
as Zany?
You would love the tattoo one, yeah.
Mhm.
And then it does like ice cream in another one, and then he does what was one we watched last night? Denim. Yeah, he's wearing like double denim. He's a cool fucker, man.
Double denim.
What a legend.
He's very few could pull it off, but Goldblum's one of them. Fucking love Jeff Goldblum.
I know. He's so cool. He's easily one of the coolest men on the planet.
He's some man for one man. You know, another man who's like that again. Sorry, going off topic slightly here, but it came up today in work because one of my colleagues said they hated him, and I was like, "How dare you, sir?" Nicolas Cage. Fucking love.
How can you hate that, man?
A bit of Nick Cage, but my work colleague just he just does not. He can't have him, and I was like, "But why not?" I was like, fucking Raising Arizona, Con Air, Wild at Heart, fucking great movies. And he's like, no. I was like, have you seen any of them movies? The Rock. I was like, have you seen any of those movies? And he was like, no. And I was like, well, there's your problem there. You just haven't engaged with any good Cage content.
Can I ask a question? What age was this work colleague?
He's in his early 30s, I think.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. But hadn't seen any of
that. I was gonna say if he was probably in his mid-20s, he probably just knows Cage from the shite straight to DVD action films that he's been doing the last 10 years.
Don't you talk about National Treasure like that? Don't you talk about National Treasure like that? But no, but I mean, he's having a bit of a renaissance now with, you know, Pig and
a lot of people have been saying about Cage having a renaissance and stuff, and I think it's a bit unfair because, you know, he's always been a great actor, and
he's consistent.
Recently, he's come out and he's been a bit more kind of open about because he was always one to kind of shy away from media.
Yeah.
But recently, he's come out and he's been speaking to media and stuff.
I love his fucking when he's doing
red
carpet.
Shortbread jacket.
But he says his jackets have a different thing. So what was it? Well, the most recent one I seen, he's like, oh, this reminds me of bark.
Yeah.
He's like the bark of a tree. I was like, wonderful. Wonderful, wholesome, good content.
And like, even if you don't like him as an actor or like his films, because there's lots of stuff I don't like lots of his films, like, and I'm sure there's 90% of that stuff that he did during that period I probably didn't even see anyway. But as a man, he's just a fucking great dude. Great dude.
He's I still love that he just buys random shit.
The dinosaur head.
Yeah, dinosaur skull. Mental.
Do you know what? Actually, funny you should mention that. And we'll get to it. We're jumping ahead here a wee bit. But there's a scene in Scanners that fucking I actually literally reminded me of that scene.
I love.
It reminded me of that conversation that we had.
I love. Are we talking about the art studio? Yes. Man, I loved that set, and I love the gallery, and I love all the pieces, and then in his art studio, I enjoyed that. But I think it's because it gave me real. The film overall. We're getting back to the subject.
Yes, we are talking about Scanners here, not Nick Cage.
There's something kind of Kubrick about it. Did you get Kubrick-y vibes from it? I got with the art stuff. I was kind of getting tastes of notes of Clockwork Orange,
yeah.
And then in the factory where they make the drug, I was getting Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
So I was like, is there a wee Kubrick-y influence in here?
It could be. Yeah. I'm sure Cronenberg enjoyed Kubrick's films. I don't think he was overtly influenced by Stanley Kubrick, but that I could be wrong there. Maybe he was taking little bits from the films.
Yeah, it's just the wee notions I got, and even the manner in which the characters kind of interact with each other. Sometimes it felt. Again, it could have just been the acting, but sometimes it felt like stilted, but intentionally stilted. You know, the way they kind of talk to each other, especially Cameron, like he's very much like the way, obviously, because he's not been able to properly talk to people because of the voices in his head. And then when those voices are quietened, he realized, well, actually, I can sit and talk to people. But there was just that kind of, I was like,
Yeah. Would you say that he was a wee bit robotic at times?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So yeah, we were talking about Rabid and his Shivers, his previous films, before we went on a tangent about Nick Cage and shit and fucking Jeff Goldblum. So Rabid was a success internationally as well, which was his first kind of success outside of Canada, which sounds strange now, but back in the 70s, that was a big deal. And he was able to get funding for his next couple of projects. I think his next project wasn't even a horror film; it was a heist film called Fast Company about like stealing cars and stuff. And then the film after that was The Brood, which was another famous film in 1979. Again, it did quite well, and then that gave him the stage to make Scanners, which he'd been working on for a while. He'd worked on this script for a number of years, and he'd actually written a couple of scripts before this, which kind of shared the same kind of premise and plot, but he sort of just picked things out of them to make Scanners. And he intended to not make this himself. He had written an original draft, and he was going to give it to Roger Corman, of all people, to make, which would have been a very strange version of Scanners. It would have been very different, I can tell you that. But he must have been busy and turned it down, and so then Cronenberg decided that he was going to make this his next project after The Brood. Do it myself, aye. Why not? And I'm glad he did, because it's fucking brilliant. But going back on sort of influences, you sort of mentioned Kubrick there. A couple of Cronenberg's influences, heavy influences, were actually authors. So he was very inspired by Isaac Asimov and Ray Bradbury, who science fiction novelists, and people like Philip K. Dick, William S. Burroughs, and J.G. Ballard, who he would end up adapting some of their work. So William S. Burroughs, he adapted Naked Lunch into a film. Who did I mention there? J.G. Ballard. He also adapted one of his films, and Crash was the film that he adapted, or the book that he adapted, which is a famous Cronenberg film. And then Philip K. Dick, he didn't actually adapt any of his work, but he was working on Total Recall. So before Paul Verhoeven came in to make that film, Cronenberg had been attached to it. And I think he was in the very, very early stages of working on a draft for the script. And for some reason that fell apart, and he went on to work on something else. But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, no, well, like I could imagine it's the kind of film where he could definitely have his part in. Yeah,
and it would have been a very strange version of Total Recall. I would have preferred it to Verhoeven, and I love the Arnie version. I love the original version of it, but I feel like Cronenberg would have made it a bit darker and dirtier, and there definitely would have been more body horror, like that scene in Total Recall where Arnie's inside the woman and his head opens up. You can imagine that would be all like really gooey, and
that'd be so good.
Like Cronenberg would really go to town on that scene. So it's a shame. But yeah, one thing that I did notice is that Cronenberg is influenced by a lot of writers who sort of like to write about the human psyche and about the mind and how important the mind is, and how it can be manipulated by society as well. Like
society, the government, technology.
If you look at Philip K. Dick's novels especially, like all his work is basically around that theme. Obviously there's technology in it as well, which we know Cronenberg's kind of obsessed with as well. But it's very, very interesting, and you can, when you think about it, you can really see a lot of that in Cronenberg's work even after Scanners.
100%. I must watch more Cronenberg, because even whenever I finished watching Scanners, The Brood came up as a recommended to watch. So I must get on. I must improve my Cronenberg library.
It's weird because, like, me and you, we both love Spielberg and Scorsese and Tarantino, and we all have you love Edgar Wright, I love Wes Craven. We all have our own favorite filmmakers. And honestly, if someone was to ask me, name your top 5 filmmakers, Cronenberg wouldn't be the first one that would come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
However, if I did sit down and think about it, I'd be like, actually, yeah, he would probably be up there.
He's definitely one of the top ones.
Top 3, yeah, top 4,
Mhm.
because his work is just incredible.
I'm trying to think who would my kind of top directors be. I guess we can only find out whenever we start putting together compilation lists. Whenever that time comes
Whenever
about.
we finally get our monthly staple, our newsletter out.
Monthly newsletter
we're planning
category lists.
We're hopefully planning some exclusive content that'll be included in that, and we'll be doing kind of lists as part of that content. So if that's what you want, you know what to do.
Go
comment
to the
website
below. Comment below, let us know if you want it, and also go sign up on the website for exclusive, possible future exclusive content.
Yeah, sign up on the website, and then you'll be informed whenever that's actually.
We promise there's no porn,
happens.
Despite what YouTube says.
We promise there'll be no porn. However, if you do want porn, we are still planning on launching our OnlyFans.
Our own OnlyFans. Da, 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 da.
So anyway, let's move on. So another big influence on Cronenberg was comic books. There you go. Which, for me, that was like, wow. I just went completely fucking Owen Wilson there. Oh, or Christopher Walken. Wow. Go on, do it.
I kept that up my ass.
Up my ass.
This was my father's watch.
Brilliant. That's always the scene. If I try to do a Christopher Walken impression, it's always that scene from Pulp Fiction.
No, it's fucking, for me, it's True Romance. Oh, yeah, Cantaloupe. Fucking great movie. But again, off topic.
What were you talking about there?
We're talking about
comic books, yes.
We're talking about comic books. Again, well, I mean, I can see that like a lot. I feel like he's always very stylized. Like the settings are always very stylized, and it's either really like grubby streets, like really over the top kind of grubby, grimy streets, or industrially clean like factory settings or studio settings. You know, I feel like that seems to be a bit of a theme through his work, which I mean you can see in comic books. You know, there's never a kind of boring looking street panel. They're always very much OTT on either side of it. So yeah, I mean, I can see that. I get that.
He would be a very visual filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you can see that in a lot of his work. But for me, I was thinking about Scanners and thinking, hang on, this is basically X-Men.
Yes. You know, oh my god, 100%.
A little bit like X-Men. You know,
yeah.
When you think about the actual plot of Scanners, and we'll go through the plot really quickly, but it's basically about this rogue scanner, or a scanner is someone who has telepathy and telekinetic
It's Professor
powers.
X. It's just,
basically.
It's Professor X.
Michael Ironside plays Revok, who's a rogue scanner who wants to take down this company called Consec.
His performance, I think Revok. I really like Revok. You know what? The more we're talking about this, the more I'm kind of like quite good. There's a lot of good
He's
stuff.
Great, man. Terrifying.
Just the boring bits were just wild boring, but the non-boring bits are wild good.
Wild good boy.
Wild good, hey. But Revok, every time Revok was on screen, I was like, oh, there's that mad bastard.
So basically, he sort of wages a war against this company called Consec, who end up then sending out a scanner to neutralize Revok. Mm-hmm. Initially, I was like, okay, that sounds like Terminator, but also a little bit Blade Runner.
Yeah.
But when I sat down to think about it and write a few notes, and found out that Cronenberg was hugely influenced by comic books, I started thinking, wow, that was really reminiscent of X-Men, and especially, you know, the idea of trying to suppress somebody's special power, which you see in X-Men Part 3, Last Stand, and you also see it a little bit throughout some of the other X-Men movies where, well, specifically in Last Stand, where they create a cure and they basically inject people with this drug that stops their ability.
Revok's just Magneto. And government try to make Cameron Professor X, but in a really shit way. But yeah, Revok is when it's towards the end when he's just like, we can be the master race. And Cameron's just like, you sound just like him. And they don't even actually have to say who him is, but you're like, are you talking about your daddy? Or are you talking about Mr. Adolf Hitler?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I mean, it's very that was very kind of an on the nose comment right there, because obviously they're talking about, spoiler alert, the professor is their dad, and
they're brothers.
About that, yeah, there are a couple of two scanner brothers who are stronger than all the rest of the scanners, of course.
They were the first.
They were the first of the scanners.
Actually, I actually forgot about that twist. So I saw this movie years and years ago, 15, 20 years ago. Really loved it back then. Loved it more now because I understood it more and respect Cronenberg's work and stuff. But I completely forgot that was the reveal until they went into that room at the end and started talking. And I was like, oh, they're brothers. I forgot about that.
I really liked whenever they were kind of playing that, because obviously the whole kind of like drug thing, and then it turns out the drug is being made in a factory that Revok actually owns, and it's all becomes a bit more kind of convoluted and crazy. But whenever it turns out that the drug itself was actually originally manufactured for like pregnant women, and they didn't realize what the side effect was going to be, and turns out that it was a well-intentioned drug that ended up having a negative side effect on the unborn babies. And I was just like, this is some fucking deep state shit, man. It's really got something to say. But then it turns out they're trying to replicate it intentionally now to create like super soldiers, basically, which again, very X-Men-y.
Very comic book. Yeah, they're trying to weaponize it basically. But funny you should speak about Revok there, played by Michael Ironside, who I think is a fantastic actor. Really terrifying as well in this role.
Oh, so good. Him, when we first get introduced to him, and there's like, it's like an auditorium, and a scanner asks somebody volunteer to come down to be scanned, and he comes down. We don't know he's a scanner yet, but then they're doing that, and the wee scanner man's like, and Revok's just sitting there like real intense. I was like, what the fuck? And then dude's head just goes, boom. I was like, ah!
Yeah, we get that scene, that that gif that you see all the time, where that scene is fucking amazing,
just popping. The head
probably the most
off.
iconic scene in the whole film, and basically, if you show that to anybody who is a fan of film, they will know, oh, that's from Scanners. Even if they hadn't seen the film, they'll know exactly what it is.
Exactly. I knew what it was. I didn't know the context of it, but obviously, having watched Scanners, I do. But I love fucking Revok with the drill mark, because I was like, what's with because the scar on his cheek, that's real. Is that real? The scar on his...
Don't think so, no.
But the scar on his cheek, and then he's got that wee drill scar, which I mean is not as real looking as the cheek scar. But then when you get to see the footage later on, when they're showing him with the wee fucking plaster with the doorway, but I did it as an eye so they wouldn't know it was a door. I was like, you're
that's
fucking
brilliant. In fact,
boy.
Interesting enough, I didn't know about this till I was doing my research for this episode. But Ironside was only employed to do those black and white scenes. Originally, he was only brought in to do those, and he wasn't going to have this huge part. And then after he did that, Cronenberg was kind of writing the script on the fly, because the Canadian government pushed this production into production way before it was ready to go, and I think he only had a 2-week shoot as well. So Cronenberg has went on to say that this is one of the most difficult movies he's ever had to film, because he was basically rushed in with no preparation. He had half a script, and he was writing the script every day, and he actually wrote Michael Ironside a bigger part because on the fly because he had him, and he was amazing, and he was like, this guy could be a really big villain in this film. So he expanded the role, and he ended up being quite a big part of the film. Which is, is obviously good, because he's a fucking brilliant actor, and he's a great villain. What an actor.
I really enjoyed his performance. Anytime he was on screen, I was like, let's go. Like, this is great. Cameron, on the other hand, I liked the way he's introduced as like this little like
Hobo.
bumbling hobo who just kind of walks in and is like just picking food off people's plates, and then he sits down and the two ladies are like slabbering about him, but they're like not saying it with their mouths, they're saying it with their minds. And he starts scanning your woman and she's like, "Marr!" And then the two random boys like spot him. I love that there's a kind of like what's going on to the whole start of it. And I think that's the way this movie kind of plays out in terms of the stuff it tells us. I felt like it was telling us the right stuff at the right time. It's just that sometimes getting to those points was a bit long-winded. And that's one thing. And I feel like Cameron, whenever he had stuff to do, when he was doing his like scannery shit, he was good and being a scanner. But when he had to be human, then it was a bit like, and I understand because he's not used to being human, that's probably why it came off so awkward and clunky. Mm-hmm. But it was just a bit boring.
I think maybe, I mean, I don't know if the guy who acted him, and I can't remember his name, unfortunately, he wasn't a very experienced actor as far as I'm aware. I think he was a painter actually as well. And I think this might have been one of his last films that he made. But he's okay in the sense that he does play that kind of innocent person well. But I don't know if he's acting much there or if he's just not a great actor, because he is quite dull on screen a lot of the time. And so I do agree with what you're saying. And maybe we're being a wee bit harsh on him there, but yeah, I do agree with what you're saying. In comparison to Michael Ironside and even Dr. Ruth, who
Dr. Ruth's
is fucking great, man.
Even your man, was it your man who sort of like the traitor, not traitor?
Yeah,
like he's really good, and even your woman's quite good whenever she kind of gets her moment to sort of shine and be a scanner too. But Cameron just. Yeah. I was a bit like, I want to rip for you, but you're just kind of boring.
I think in a way it is supposed to be a bit yin yang. You know, Michael Ironside's Revok is so kind of villainous looking. You know, when he's got that face,
bombastic. Yeah.
Whereas Cameron's got like a very very innocent. You know, he's got the big eyes, and you know he looks innocent, and he doesn't look as if he could hurt you.
He looks shocked all the time. Yeah, he can mess with your mind.
But let's talk about the famous scene. We spoke about it briefly there. It was basically, so the first scene is in the shopping mall when we meet him for the first time, and you said
kidnapped.
And then the second scene the second sequence is in the auditorium, whenever we have the scanner who thinks that he's doing a test, basically testing and showing these people what scanning is. And all the people in the audience are supposed to be businessmen from around the world that are going to take part in this kind of experiment. And then you find out that Revok is a scanner, and we have that incredible scene where the head explodes. It's fantastic because it's shocking. First of all, it is very, very shocking. It isn't to us because we knew it was going to happen. But if you're watching that for the first time and you don't know what's going to happen.
And you didn't know. You've never seen the gif of the exploding head.
Exactly. And also, it's fucking amazing. It still stands up.
It's a great practical effect. It's so... Like, I think this here is actually a better special effects moment than the special effects we get later on with the veins. The veins are good, but this is better. I like them, but this is
better because it's more shocking. It comes out of nowhere. The veins is something that you see build up for a little time.
Yeah, it progresses along. It's the fucking spontaneous combustion that scanners seem to be able to do in this. That I'm like, well, you can definitely see where they've done like the human outline of a body with the flammable liquid, and then just basically like fuck the match at it. So it was
basically it was a plastic it was a plaster skull that was not put on the actor, but obviously they swapped him out at the very last minute. And they use latex and wax as well to create the sort of splatter. But guess what else they used? Leftover burgers. Yeah, and guess what else? This isn't the first time that we've spoken about leftover burgers that have been used in a practical effect. Do you remember our Reanimator episode?
Oh God, yes. Yeah. What leftover?
I was thinking, hang on, what was that other film that we were talking about?
The bum meat. Bum meat.
That's right, yeah, bum meat. That was great. So one of the special effects guys that worked on this is Chris Wallace, who is known for creating the Gremlin in the first Gremlin movies, but he's worked on loads of films over the years. He's a fucking fantastic special effects guy. He worked on the team that was supervised by the legendary Dick Smith. Dick Smith, an absolute legend in the field. He worked on Exorcist. He created the makeup for Exorcist. He also worked on Amadeus. He did Don Corleone's makeup in The Godfather. So he's an absolute legend of the field. He was basically a consultant. And then he, as the film continued on, I think he was a wee bit more hands-on in the finale, with the veins part.
Yeah.
But it was your guy Wallace and another guy who I can't remember his name. But the way that they got the effect was they used a shotgun.
And just blasted it?
They just shot his head off. So they tried a few different techniques and it wasn't quite getting that big pop that they wanted. And then one of the other guys, it wasn't Chris Wallace, it was one of the supervisors, said, right, everyone leave the room. And they all left the room and looked in through the window, and he lay behind it with a shotgun and just fucking shot the head.
It.
And they caught it on camera, and that was it. So that's what you see. That could be an urban legend. Maybe it's been Chinese whispered a wee bit over the years, but yeah, apparently that's what happened, and I think it's fucking amazing. Imagine they did that today. Oh, here, lads, everyone leave the room. I'll just get my shotgun.
There'd be too much health and safety involved there. Yeah, far too much health and safety. You can't just be blasting shotguns off into a room. Definitely not.
But yeah, an amazing practical effect. I really love the finale as well. I think the veins are really cool.
I really enjoyed the finale, and I liked the wee twist at the end, but I was also kind of like, okay. The bit when he comes out of the coat and he's like, it's me. Yeah. And the wee scar's gone and all, and it's like,
and his eye colors have changed.
Yeah, I was like, okay, all right, fair enough.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. I do love
I think if I'd cared about Cameron more,
yeah, I know what you mean,
then I would have been like, hey, but I don't really care. I would have actually preferred if Revok had lived, to be honest.
You're just a villain, aren't you, Danny?
Just a bit of a villain. Revok was just a far more interesting character.
Class, yeah.
Actually, who I really wish had lived? The artist.
Yeah.
The artist had lived. I really liked his whole vibe and his whole kind of tragic backstory and stuff. I thought he was Benjamin Pierce, yeah, and his whole thing about he tried to kill his family at 10 years old with his scanner powers, but then it's like, well, it's because he didn't know how to control his scanner powers, and then he managed to control them with his art.
Do you know who he was?
No,
he was Jean Grey, Danny.
He's just
didn't know.
It's only just twinked.
But yes, so I love the finale because I love the battle between the two. It's not a physical thing, it's a mental thing, and it's very much it's sort of like Gandalf, Saruman. They don't touch each other. Obviously, in the Lord of the Rings, they use their staves, but in this, they're just like.
Sometimes you see like a wee. It's constant like taking a shit. It's whatever the way like people react as well when they're being like scanned and they're just like just like
one more time.
Who do you think? I was gonna say, do you think Cronenberg was just like fucking act like you're dying for a shite? Just okay. Fucking hell.
There's the bit where actually talking about funny facials when people are doing it in the artist studio, whenever the guys come in to shoot the guy, and then he's in the big helmet, or he's in the big head, and he's like and then the guy's like falls back into it.
Yeah,
he's like, oh.
He actually full on flops, but yeah, you're right. He kind of throws the hands up. I love it whenever Benjamin's like getting shot, but he's like getting shot, but he's still like walking along. He's just like, oh, there's a bit where he gets shot in the back. There's a bit where he gets shot in the back, and he literally is just like he's just got out of bed, funny, and he's like, oh,
like, ow, that hurt.
It killed him. Even though he noise he makes, it's not a noise you would make if you were hit with a shotgun. Like, no way.
Aye, class.
And his just trundling over and then being like, ah.
No, the finale's great.
Oh, the big head. Can we talk about the big head? What a wonderful set piece that was. The big head, and then you walked inside it and they had all the bean bags in it and stuff. I loved that. I thought that was great. And I love in the art studio, and there's like a sculpture of like people doing surgery. One of them's almost got like a reanimator green syringe, like one of the statues, which I was like, and all the wee like freaky faces and stuff that I thought that was great. And the wee that like waterfall of heads with all the strings coming out the mouths into the dude's head. I was like, oh, these are wonderful. And I'm like, class. Do these exist somewhere? Is this somebody's art? Is this Cronenberg's art? Whose art is this? Surely
I do think Cronenberg is an artist and has done sculptures and stuff. I don't know if that's his own work. But I loved the big head, as you said, where he was inside. And that was very thematic of the film. You know, he's hiding inside his own mind.
Yep.
He's hiding away,
all up in the head, all up in the head space. Oh, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. You know what? I was a bit kind of like, we could have just stuck with the whole telekinetic, like messing with the human mind thing. But see, when it's like a computer circuit, it's just the computer's brain, and you know what else has a brain? Humans. So you can also read the computer brain like a human brain. I was like, way on.
Well, that's kind of Cronenberg's obsession with technology. You know, he really goes out there with Videodrome. He goes into all that stuff, but in this, he does kind of make the connection between a human circuit board and a human brain.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I suppose in many ways is very similar.
It does, yeah. It does kind of make sense, but the whole kind of it as a kind of plot device, I was like, he could have just had him go and like read somebody in the organization's mind instead of doing the whole thing where he's like, I'm gonna tap through the phone network and I'm gonna get him. Because then it was like that wee bit, I was a bit like, is this Matrix?
Yeah, sort of reading the files and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I was kind of.
I know what you mean, yeah.
But again, whenever your dude's like holding up the IT guys and he's like, delete it or just, you know, self-destruct it, and they're like, but sir, it'll wipe away everything in the business, and he's like, fucking do it.
And then the guy's like, I have to go to that computer.
Yeah, it's so awkward. It's such an awkward. He's like, I have to go over there, and he's just like,
go on then, fucking do it.
So fucking and then they're just like, it's very quiet.
I love what I do love about the film as well is I love the look of those kind of late 70s, early 80s films.
Yeah.
It reminded me actually quite a lot of Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
Still need to watch
in a way that it's all like rich, white, powerful men in suits walking around. They know secrets and they're following you and they look at you, and you know that's very much Season of the Witch. And there is a lot of connections you can make with David Cronenberg and John Carpenter as well. That was the connection I made, and a lot of their work, you know, you could put together and be like, fuck, you know, there's symbiosis there between how they make films. And I think that's why I love them both, because they're just amazing. And also one thing I love about this era of filmmaking, I love the over-the-top Foley that's used.
Oh, yeah.
When someone's walking, and I spoke about this on a recent episode, I can't remember what it was, but when someone's walking down a corridor, it's like clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop. It's just so over the top, and I love it. And I also love the sound, you know, which is, a lot of it is obviously not recorded through camera. It's added afterwards and stuff. And there was one scene which was actually, it was a bit dodgy looking. I think it might have been Benjamin Pierce, the artist. When we first meet him, you can really tell that he's not speaking, you know, that it's ADR or dubbed or whatever, which would have been common back in those days. But I just love that. It's such a cool little thing. And I love that shit, man.
I know. Oh, I know you do, buddy. I know you do. No, this I agree. I love all the wee things. Now the scanner noise itself, like I like it. I get it. I know what it's supposed to mean. But fuck, it gets a wee bit annoying after a while sometimes.
Yeah, when it happens quite a lot, and you're like, oh, here we go again, type thing.
Yeah. Or when there's like 3 different scanners, like whenever all the scanners, like the wee kind of commune of like peaceful scanners are having their like wee group scanner.
Harry Krishna moment.
Yeah, and they're all just kind of like speaking in each other's heads, and there's all the wee voices, and it's just like the noise kind of goes on a bit, and you're like, I get it. They're doing a wee scanner thing, like, okay. And even the voice, whenever they first capture Cameron and we see him and he's all bound up to the bed, and they bring all the people into the room, and you can hear the voices, and again, I get what it is that they're doing with it, but there's parts of it where obviously they've just layered in lots of different voices, but there was this one woman's voice I just kept picking up in it, and I was like, shut up. Like, you're ruining it for everybody else. Let somebody else have a say. But there was just this one particular sound file in the mix that was just coming off more than the others, and I was like, give somebody else a chance, would you?
There's funny you were talking about that sort of commune scene. I thought that was a great scene because they're all like peacefully kind of interfacing, I suppose you could say. And then the two assassins come in. Pure brutal. They just kick the door down and just fucking blast them away. And it's funny because when they're creeping in through the door initially, and one of the other guys opens the door and he sort of takes a second to look at him, he goes, no. And then they just smack him in the face and he falls down like a flight of stairs. And it just sort of comes out of nowhere, but it's a great wee scene. It's actually quite brutal.
Yeah.
You know,
that scene's quite brutal. And then there's the scene whenever Revok has been caught. He ends up getting caught after blowing your man's head up, and he's like mind manipulating the driver, and they have to like he swerves off into the wall and all, and then he gets everyone to basically like attack each other, which again, I mean, fantastic scene from Ironside, like his performance during that, and he gets your man to shoot himself in the head and all. I was just like, fucking it, like this guy means business. What a great villain.
Brilliant.
Such a good villain.
Very underrated villain, yeah, definitely. But we briefly spoke about Dr. Ruth, who's played by Patrick McGoohan. Fucking brilliant performance. Like
he's great too. I like whenever it was actually the scene whenever they're kind of take Cameron in to get him to learn. I mean, because you're able to learn how to use your scanner powers after like one lesson with a yoga master. Did you know? Because that's the thing. But whenever they take him in to do the session with the yoga master, but they were like hooking the yoga master up to all the machines, I was like, is this going to be fucking Matrix? And that there's fucking Lawrence Fishburne and Cameron's Neo, and they're going to meet in the Matrix or something to do like a fucking martial arts session. Then it was like, nah, actually, that's just so they can monitor his heart because he can control his heart, and they're going to get Cameron to speed his heart up. Which again, I like that their idea of, you know, that's how they try to explain the powers to us. But I really like Dr. Ruth in that scene and how he is manipulative, but also paternal. You kind of get that paternal vibe before you ultimately find out that he is the dad. Yeah,
because he says that he's got a connection with Cameron. Early on, he says, "Oh, well, actually, I have this one guy, and I've got a connection with him." So yeah, they kind of lay the groundwork earlier on before actually, you know, revealing the twist in the end. There's also a great scene, and I thought this was fucking really ahead of its time, where they try to escape. Cameron and a girl, I can't remember her name, try to escape the other scanner, and the two security guards are standing one at each side, and she looks at one of the guards, and then she turns into the guard's mother.
Yeah.
And the guard starts crying. He's like, I'm sorry, mom. I'm sorry, mom. How fucking great was that? That
was great. That was, whenever you see how he reacts and all after and stuff, and it's just great. Yeah, that's really good. Again, whenever she gets to shine, whenever she gets to do like her hardcore scanner shit during that whole kind of sequence where they're trying to escape and stuff, she really gets to flourish there. But again, Cameron just doesn't.
No, I just thought that was a really interesting way to use your powers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so many times we see, oh, they just make their heart beat faster, or they tell them to shoot themselves or something like that. But in
Mm-hmm.
that moment, she makes the
She
guy
gets deep into his subconscious
see
and
her as
fucks with his mind.
mother, and it's a very emotional reaction, and I thought it was
Mm.
really, really clever.
Yep.
I actually would have liked to have seen more of that kind of technique used
Mm-hmm.
in the film. What did you think of the end? You said that you didn't mind the end twist.
I didn't mind it. I think, as I said, I'd grown to prefer Revok over Cameron.
Is
I think I
I,
would have either they both died or Revok lived. I think I wanted the bad guy to
yeah,
win in this instance. I enjoy the end. You're right. I like that it's not like a physical tussle. It's, it's all the mind and the way they're trying to overpower each other, but because they're both that powerful, they're both making each other's like blood vein, the veins pop, and the fire coming out their hands and stuff. It's a really cool scene. And I like the twist, and I love the whole kind of lead up to it when Revok's explaining to him, and you have that moment where Cameron, and again, I think it's probably one of the better Cameron moments, is when he's like, "You sound just like him," but
yeah.
there's more to that. There's a deeper context to that than just talking about Dr. Ruth. He's talking about all the Fuhrers out there, and those kind of people. And yeah, that was a really powerful moment. And I even love, one of my favorite things in it is the old advert for the drug.
Oh yeah.
I love that. I love the mother holding the child, and he's talking about the implications of that drug on the children and on the mothers, and how it didn't seem obvious until they realized that it was giving them the powers, and the only way to suppress it was by giving them more of the drug to them. But if only they could, start giving it to pregnant women to create this super soldier army. I loved all that. I love that isn't a tell until the very end. All kind of is building up to that moment,
Yeah,
but then
yeah.
when it's ultimately explained to us at the end, it's just like, fuck, like it's all tied together. So nice.
You get a tease when the girl's in the waiting room and she gets scanned by the unborn child
Yep.
in the woman's tummy, which is like a nice little tease. But
Mm-hmm.
I love the confrontation between Revok and Cameron. We spoke about it quite a bit, and I think that that's one of the most iconic scenes as well. Whenever Revok, he sort of turns, his eyes goes completely white, and we see the flames as well from Cameron.
Yep.
Who is basically burning himself alive, technically.
Yep.
I think that's a very iconic scene as well. And
he's burning himself out.
Yes, he's burning the candle.
Hey,
Away.
at both ends.
At both ends, he definitely is.
Both
But
ends.
yeah,
both ends.
Just a fantastic film. I think Revok, as you said, is a very underrated film, and I think he really should be up there on all those great villain lists. Which I don't know, maybe he is, but I don't tend to see him that often.
No, you wouldn't see him often, but he definitely deserves to be. He's got, and I think even like whenever we see him, we see that kind of moment where Cameron's broke into the facility that's making the drug, and you see Revok being just a businessman. You see him being quite ordinary.
He's got like a clipboard and stuff.
And even in that moment, you're like, you expect something to happen because he is such a sinister character. And I think that's a great thing to have with a character, is that even in those moments where they're not being sinister, you still expect something to happen, even though it won't. We still expect something might happen. I fully expected him to realize that Cameron was there and fucking go for him.
I think that one of the great things that this film achieves is sort of making you question who the villain is and who the good guys are. Because initially you would lean towards Revok and be like, oh, this guy's fighting against this regime that are trying to control people that have these powers and blah blah blah. Similar like to what Magneto tries to do throughout a lot of the timeline of X-Men. And then by the end of it, the story's twisted a little bit, and you realize, oh, Revok's trying to use this to create a race and blah blah blah. So it does a good job to kind of create a confusion between who is the good guy and who is the bad guy. And I think it is a clever end. But amazing film. This you watched it for the first time.
That was my first time.
Yeah, you said that you weren't too fussed on parts of
I don't.
it, but
Yeah, I think overall I enjoy it. I enjoy the themes that are explored. I enjoy Revok. I enjoy some of the other characters. Cameron. I just the bits that are boring are very boring.
yeah, there are some slow bits in it, but one thing we haven't spoken about is the score. Do you know who did the score?
Who?
Mr. Lord of the Rings, Howard Shore.
Ooh.
Yeah. So Howard Shore basically started his career working with David Cronenberg. Obviously, he had done stuff before that, but he really moved into film scores with Cronenberg. He worked on, I think he worked on Rabid as well. He's worked on The Brood, The Fly. He's done other films later in his career as well. So whenever you think of Howard Shore, everyone basically goes straight for Lord of the Rings, and these epic scores that he's created, and it's some of the greatest music ever put on film.
Oh,
but when you think back, he's actually sort of got his introduction into film score through the king of body horror, Mr. David Cronenberg.
Yes.
But yeah, fantastic score, very sort of its time, electronic, getting some Vangelis hits there as well in certain scenes. So I mentioned Blade Runner a wee bit at the start, kind of had that vibe to it a little bit anyway. But yeah,
some Vangelis.
Love a bit of Vangelis. So anyway, that's basically all we've got time for this week. I say it's a massive thumbs up for me. I love Cronenberg, I love Scanners, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about more Cronenberg films on Monday Night Frights.
100%. I'll finally get around to let us know in the comments below. Do you want us to talk about The Fly? Because I'm really keen to watch it. So
I absolutely will cover The Fly. I love The Fly. Jeff Goldblum, I'll watch anything that he's in.
100%.
So 2 weeks, we will have another episode of Monday Night Frights.
Our second to last.
Until then, yes, our penultimate episode of season 5. Go visit the website. It's www.thefrightclubni.com and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at thefrightclubni.
Yeah.
And also subscribe to our channel. Like this video, comment, share with your horror pals. Tell anybody that you think would enjoy this show. Please tell them to come and join us and become a Fright and watch our videos every 2 weeks. So
be a buddy.
Be a buddy. Be a horror pal.
Be a pal.
But yeah, so that's all we've got time for this week. Until 2 weeks' time, stay safe, take care, all the best. Bye.
Bye.
Beep, beep, beep. Scan.
Scanned.